No worries at all. So, hello everyone. John Swanson, Polk County Public Works. Came up a couple months ago. Angela's like, hey John, it'd be great for you to come and give an update on the ARPA funded projects for water quality. And I was like, yes, it is a great time. Because as you all, I'm sure, noticed on the agendas, we've had a lot of agenda items coming through. So I'm going to try to rather succinctly run through our projects. There's a lot of information. I'm going to try and do it in a short time frame, but hopefully keep it exciting and go from there. But if you rewind time a little bit, July 26, 2022, you all passed by resolution $7.9 million in 11 projects that went to Public Works Water Resources for us to take that funding and to implement those projects. And the first of those projects that we'll toss out there is what we call our batch and build program. This is one that we started back in 2020, where we were looking to complete the installations of saturated buffers and bioreactors. Statewide, we were not doing a good job of getting these practices in the ground. Here in Polk County, in the 6 years prior, we'd installed 5 of these. In the last 5 years now, we've installed 185 of these structures. And the batch and build has really been developing a new method to how do we actually get farmers to put these in. And it's been around targeting and grouping installations. But maybe the most exciting part is our model that we developed here in Polk County is now being carried in 22 Iowa counties and in 4 states across the Midwest. And that's where the $100,000 ARPA commitment has helped us get the word out and help show others how to do it, and very strategically using a relatively small amount of money to help others get their own batch and build started. And also excited, and when I say batch and build for me, it has nothing to do with saturated buffers or bioreactors. It's around how do you get private landowners to do something? And they can do lots of different things. And so we've also tailored our batch and build. We've actually developed an urban soil quality restoration batch and build where we group homeowner projects together. And since 2022, we've actually done 1,000 of these in Polk County with 4 different Polk County communities. And we also have 3 different states that are working on similar projects. And basically, it's homeowners, they improve their soil in their front yard to get water to soak in better. And somewhat unique for this one, we've actually seen almost a 40% reduction in prices by grouping projects together. And then we will toss out that we also have a prairie buffer strip, filter strip program. That's, although we don't have capacity right now to lead it in Polk County, we've helped develop the program, and we have 2 Iowa counties launching the program that we developed here in Polk County. Kind of rolling into the next one. Eastern Polk stream restoration. This is the big one. This is the one that's really taken over our lives quite a bit, but essentially Polk County, we're about to do the biggest stream restoration project ever done in the history of Iowa. We're actually going to take 10 miles of stream, the worst streams in Eastern Polk County, and we're going to restore them to their proper function. We're going to protect infrastructure. A bumpy road to the finish line. We actually originally had a big federal program that we were using this for. Several years of work went into it. Long story short, we couldn't get to the programmatic finish line, but we had the state actually come in because they saw the validity of our work, and they came in and offered us to the tune of $10 million to help us carry that project forward. So you can see there, with all of our local partner contributions, we're right at $20 million in those Eastern Polk County communities.
Hey, Jonathan, how do you define the worst streams?
So essentially what we did is over a multi-year period, we had staff going out walking our streams with a handheld, essentially computer, and we cataloged the status of our streams. We then brought it down, and we really spent several years prioritizing what is the best bang for our buck. And the worst is if you have streams that are moving 10 feet a year towards infrastructure, say a sanitary sewer line or homes, those quickly began to rank highly. And then if you look at ones where do we have willing landowners, where could we work on public lands, we tied all these things together. And even the last piece was, could we actually get people down into the stream and sprinkle in some recreation? When we found all those pieces, so streams eroding very significantly, protecting infrastructure, willing landowners, and recreational opportunities, those are what these 11 projects are.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, good question. And we will toss out the one that might be the one that forces me to retirement, but there's the Brook Run neighborhood in Des Moines. So I've been working personally with these folks. The board of supervisors actually invested in doing some protections on a stream there about a decade ago. For the last 7 years, we've been trying to address the rest of the streams in this neighborhood in Des Moines. Think about a stream that used to be a foot wide, or 3 foot wide and a foot deep, and now it's about 30 foot wide and 10, 12 foot deep, getting right into homeowners' backyards. I joked about the retirement because here we're actually trying to tackle getting 59 homeowners to all agree on letting us come in and complete this project. And in this case, the HOA is putting in the state match that's required for the project. So in this one project.
So they're in agreement now with all this?
The HOA is, and we're actually going house by house. As we sit today, we have 11 homeowners signed up of the 59. We've paused our design until we can get everyone set up, and we've had 3 public meetings. But it really requires everyone to sign on the dotted line and says, yes, I want this stream worked on my property. The biggest con is for us to get in and fix a stream, we have to clear trees out of the way. And that is a big deal to people. And so, but we've kind of told them this one was years in the making. This is really the one shot to fix these streams that are simply unraveling and falling apart. Cover crop cedar program, you guys might remember this unique one where we, best form of mimicry is taking other people's ideas. And so we learned in Kansas that they actually bought 9 of these high clearance cover crop cedars. They strategically placed them around the state, and we all learned about it in Iowa, and we're like, we should do this. And we partnered with Des Moines Waterworks, and we purchased, and our Department of Ag and Land Stewardship, we purchased this piece of machinery, literally in that picture. We set a goal of working up to 10,000 acres a year, so seeding 10,000 acres through this machine, and lots of technical reasons why this is better than flying it on with an airplane. But we're excited that in fall of 2024, we seeded over 10,000 acres. Similar programs in Pennsylvania and those in Kansas, the best that they've ever hit was 5,000 acres. So we've doubled the second best program in the nation.
We got a lot of crap for that too, buying that.
We did. And we always joke that, like, if you're doing anything, like, it's just so different, right? Everyone else is paying people to do cover crops. We realized the real reason, in our opinion, why the cover crops weren't being as successful is, like, they were getting flown on and paid for in an airplane, and they weren't getting it to grow. And so we learned about this equipment that can literally drive through a month earlier, can drop the seed right on the ground. The second they harvest their corn or beans, that cover crop is literally already growing, and you get it to work. And if a farmer's making an investment, and if they try it 3 or 4 years in a row and it doesn't grow, is that a good investment? Most of them are saying no. And so with this piece of equipment, we actually have the co-op goes out, they sell the equipment, they sell the cover crops for us, they drive the seeder, and we create this environment where the cover crops, we're getting a much better growth out of it. And we're hoping to see, we're starting to see some of that farmers and landowners be like, yeah, it's actually working on my farm.
I hope so.
The other big one, this one, the wetland wave, we call it, right? So we had some successes under belt, the cover crop's going well, the batch build's going well. Back in 2022, we were 0 for 6 on big agricultural wetlands. So we're like, yeah, we should definitely start a wetland program because we can't be doing worse than we're doing now. So basically, we spent about 9 months after this was approved. We actually went around and interviewed all the best wetland people across the state. We found out who is doing wetlands very well, what can we learn from them, how can we combine that with what we've learned from batch and build and our cover crop program, and we launched what we call the wetland wave. We then set up an open 2080 fiscal agreement with IDOLS, the states. And sitting here today, we have a whole wetland program, and there's one I'll sprinkle in there too, the Great Outdoors Foundation. There's been a lot of Great Outdoors Foundation resolutions coming through. So we coincided the launch of our wetland wave with their Conservation Acceleration Fund, where they're doing private fundraising, and they've been doing private fundraising to bring in money to leverage our public dollars. And what's a project without results? So we were 0 for 6. From 2022 to now, we have 2 complete, 5 actively under construction, and 15 under design. We've actually paused this program because it was outpacing staff capacity. So we also have a whole nother wave, as we call it, kind of in the queue, waiting until we get some projects unloaded before we bring in our next wave of wetlands. A couple other projects we sprinkled in. So some of those are programs that we've kind of set the stage to keep doing wetlands in the future, keep doing cover crops, keep doing the batch and build. But there were a few projects out there that had a lot of merit that the decision was made to invest some of these dollars into these programs. One of them, pretty unique, this was the city of Elkhart that's converted an old sewage lagoon that wasn't doing anything, it was just sitting there full of lovely contaminants. Cleaned those out, updated it into essentially a stormwater treatment pond that's now a city park in Elkhart. Great leveraging of dollars. This is an example of one where we help provide some technical assistance, but we essentially funneled some money to help get them to the finish line for this project. Similar, Creekview wetland, this one's been, was a few years in the making, but all started with a developer actually reaching out because he heard about all the great things happening in 4 Mile Creek. This was the 2024 Iowa Stormwater Project of the Year. This is one of the largest urban wetlands in the state. Partnership between the county that led oversight and construction, the city of Ankeny, who's taking over ownership when we finished things up. We finished things up about 2 months ago, and the local developer who donated the land for the project.
Wow.
This one in total treats about 500 acres coming from the city of Ankeny. That was all built prior to any stormwater management. So we did the rare feat of coming back in and treating water that's completely untreated.
Is that Rich Eichner?
That was Rich Eichner. Yes.
We worked 10 years on that.
We did, and we even partnered and we helped improve his development abilities for neighboring land. It was really a unique where the developer wins, the watershed wins, the city wins, the county wins.
He's thrilled with it.
He is. If all he was not, it was fun getting agreements through him because I think at one point had 3 lawyers looking at all of our agreements, but we made it through. It was a good learning curve for us.
So this is the finished product?
This was a drone flight of earlier this summer. You can see it's just starting to green up. The water hits a diversion structure right here. It gets diverted into this wetland. This is a forebay that's intended to capture like soil that gets dumped in before water then goes into this wetland, which has some submerged berms. Overflows here, and basically takes 24 to 48 hours to work through the wetland before going into 4 Mile Creek, and helps us
Wow.
provide some flood control also, which the city of Des Moines loved.
That really is going to slow down
The water that comes
4
through?
Mile Creek coming down.
And to set the stage, we've actually had several tour buses of people come out to this site. It's become like the hot spot, and I keep telling them, like, it's not even greened up yet. Like, can we give it a year? But we are planning on having a big ribbon cutting in May next year, so you all will certainly be invited, and it should be a lovely event, and everything will be green and covered in prairie flowers, and we'll have lots of good stories. Chichaqua, so here the idea was, we have 10,000 acres of public land in northeastern Polk County. We have the South Skunk River, which is one of the state's priority watersheds to improve water quality. And we had almost 15,000 acres of farmland draining right through those public lands. How could we use our public land to treat water? Well, we learned in this one, how do we work with our local drainage districts? How do we get water out of ditches and get them up into wetlands that are starved of water? So planned here is we have several, we're actually first of its kind in Polk County pumped wetlands. We're actually gonna pump and have essentially like a control panel. We can turn pumps on, shut them off, send water to where we want it to be, including my favorite part is this middle pump here, which is rehydrating the old Skunk River. So we have about 4 miles of Skunk River winding right here that hasn't had water in 100 years. We're pumping water back into it, and it's gonna provide some water quality treatment. And the last piece of the puzzle is up here. We're actually gonna be turning our ditch, Drainage District 4, into a 2-staged water quality ditch, which is essentially a new ditch design we learned from Ohio, where it's actually like a linear wetland that still serves its purpose as a drainage ditch. And we have a 4-year Iowa State research team that's gonna be monitoring those improvements. And if successful, our hope is that it'll be part of the statewide approved toolbox for what we can do in Iowa. And as we wrap things up, Iowa Rivers Revival, we did do an investment in that organization because whenever you get people out walking in streams, there's just a lot of inherent good comes of that. 2023, we had a good launch year. 2024 was a year of transition as IRR was having some change in staffing. And it looks like we've come up with a plan that 2025, as the deal gets closed, as IRR becomes a part of Great Outdoors Foundation, a relaunch of this program in 2025. So again, nothing's ever perfect and easy, but we're working through and hoping to see hundreds of people back in the stream in 2025. And as we wrap up, a couple ones that I sprinkle at the end, but I would argue the next two, or these two, are probably if you're going to say we want to do it right, this might be the most difficult work. And one of those would be the Central Iowa Land Stewardship Project, which is, there's a lot of farmland being farmed that is not profitable. And simply by farming it, when you actually put in all the input costs, you're losing money by farming. And it's indicated by there on the red areas of that farm. And what great areas, but if we could use those that's where we should put conservation and water quality treatments. So we've launched a program in partnership with Polk Soil and Water Conservation District where they're actually mapping all these areas of Polk County and have a team that goes out and is working with those landowners and farmers. But again, the hard parts, that is very personal information. It's hard to get landowners and farmers to give you that information. Many have tried, few have been successful. Well, we're gonna take our spin at it. And at the end of the day, we also realize that a strong district makes for strong watersheds and makes all of us better. Our hope is this is the thing the district can really grab onto and help them be successful for the next few years. And the last one on the right there, partnering with Iowa State Extension, after John Norris and I worked through a competitive to find out who could do this, but this idea of how can we get landowners better educated on what's happening to their farm? Because as we kept hearing from folks, there's a lot of landowners that they just own the farm. They don't really know what's happening there. And so this is Iowa State Extension's first time starting a landowner, not a farmer, but a landowner education program. And we had our first class. It's basically a year-long class they go through. Our first 25 graduates were this past year. So really excited about the initial outputs of that one. And at the end of the day, what's a good PowerPoint without a good ended slide? But $7.9 million invested by Polk County Board of Supervisors, leveraged an additional $52 million. So all in all, we're close to $60 million, 7-to-1 match. We're testing our limits of how much can 3 people do. So we have 3 people overseeing this. Of the 52, about 35 are directly being oversaw by public works staff. So a lot of great things happening, things we hope to see statewide impacts and carrying us into the future.
Jonathan, where did most of that money come from of the 52 million? Did that come through Iowa or through USDA?
Most of it came through Iowa, the Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship,
Okay.
up to the tune of about 30 million. And what you see right now in Iowa is they have funding through Bill SF 512 that has increasing amounts of money coming to the state for the next few years. And they have been very open to, like, if you can get projects on the ground, we want to work with you. And that's what's kind of really fed to this.
Okay. And then the remainder was USDA or?
USDA, private fundraising.
Outdoors Foundation.
Great Outdoors Foundation. They just brought in actually the final $1 million for Brent and Slough, which I didn't even, this doesn't even include Brent and Slough.
Right.
That money came from Google, so we got $1 million from Google.
Okay.
And so we also have some private, so whole suite, USDA, and I'd be happy to share a report if you'd like to see some of those breakdowns, but it's pretty unique. I think
Curious as to-
the latest, I think close to $10 million in local city partners. So an example, City of Ankeny is putting in $2 million to our stream program. Pleasant Hill is putting in $500,000 into that program, so quite the suite.
You guys do great, great work. Who would have thought several years ago we would be this far?
Yes.
First of all, I didn't think you could incentivize anybody to get anything done on this, but it's really been an awesome work. And I think the state's finally recognizing that water quality is significant.
There's definitely, and a lot of change that's needed. So I think a lot of us, even the last 5 years, have realized we can't do things the way we've always done it. These are different issues. These are a different world we live in. Sometimes it's not about the money. More often it's about, like, people are busy. How do you make conservation work for the average person in Iowa in 2024? So excited to see some of our programs take off because they simply work. And it's because we've changed how we implement the conservation. We don't just throw more money at it.
Right.
Now, the Batson bill, the genesis of that was 4 Mile Creek, as I recall.
Absolutely.
There's way more than that now, right?
Yeah, so we've, of the 185, close to 60 of those were just upstream of Ankeny in one small watershed. And even there, we have a full research team quantifying the benefits of, like, all right, did it actually work? Personally, I hope so, as we put a lot of work into it. But we're answering some of those questions, and as folks have naturally learned about it, they're taking these methods and they're bringing it to their counties or to their other states. And some of these new methods, it's like a whole different world. It's different than how we were trained as traditional conservationists. It's not doing it the way we were doing it for decades. It's very different methods.
Oh, yeah, I think the one thing that kind of struck me about it was that the farmer or landowner, whoever, doesn't have to do much of anything, really. Contractor comes in, does the work for them, they didn't have to take anything out of production, and we're ready to go. It's kind of a sweet program, really.
And some folks that have been a little, like, because change is hard, right? And some of these new methods, they're like, well, we don't want to focus on just one practice. And we're like, we agree. So we come in and we install 20 saturated buffers. And they're all like, well, what about all this stuff? Well, what happens is we form in a natural way, relationship with those landowners and farmers. And then when we started this wetland wave, we actually mapped over 1,000 wetland sites. We targeted our best ones. And we're like, hey, look, 10 of these, we already know the landowners. We call them up and they're like, hey, John, how's it going? And we're like, hey, remember, what do you think about a wetland? They're like, yeah, come out to the farm and let's talk about it. So they, like, set the stage for all these other things to kind of come to fruition.
Well done.
I just know that they're small cost items, those two, the non-profitable acres and the landowners that aren't farmers. Iowa State was really excited to do this because they've been thinking about this. We really helped launch this, and it was so fun to listen to them tell the stories of the interaction they had with the landowners that really are not aware of how their land's being farmed. So we know long-term practices have to change upstream, and over 60% of Iowa farmland is now rented. It's almost 70%, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So if
So they don't even know what's going on with their own land?
right.
No.
their soil health's being depleted.
Wow.
The runoff, we're having to filter out with all these projects. If we can get landowners to be more conscious of how their land's being farmed, that should eventually affect what's coming downstream. And
Right.
we'll see more of that in the SISRO report, which will come out in March or April, but that's, and the non-profitable acres is just, how do you change those habits? Farmers want to plant and grow stuff, and they literally are 10 to 15% of the land that's planted is farmed at a loss. And they'd be better off financially, and our water quality would be better off if that was put into filter strips or wetlands or what have you. So a lot of this is just, we're really on the front edge of helping change the mentality out there.
That's great.
I knew we had arrived, or were beginning to arrive, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And you've started attending our Polk County Farm Bureau annual meeting. And Bob and I have been going to that for at least my 12 years. But when Polk County Farm Bureau contacted us, me, and said, we'd like to do a bus tour and highlight some of the things that you're doing. And the bus was, I think they had 2 buses. I'm not sure the date, I've got some pictures of it. But that was just exciting to me, that the Farm Bureau, why
They were interested?
they embraced it. And today even more. I mean, you probably have a couple of stories about how you've seen Farm Bureau just come around. Chautauqua, I mean, they were skittish on some of those
Oh, yeah.
things. And it was you that really took all the angst away, because you know, and we know what we're doing.
A lot of good stuff out of it.
I know what you're doing, but I don't know
Yeah,
what you're doing.
all good things.
But thank you so much for that. I think that's a real feather in our cap in Polk County.
Totally is.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jonathan.
We'll end with a cute picture of daughters swimming in Fort Mock Creek, because what are we doing if we're not doing that? So, end on a very positive note. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Next up, Global Neighbors.
It's a two-man act here.
Okay.
We're just gonna scroll through it.
Okay, Mark, you got big shoes to fill.
Yes. Well, good morning. Good to see you all. Happy to be here and talk about an update on Global Neighbors. Last time I was here, Global Neighbors was on the docket to be approved for a pro bono agreement with BBS Architecture and Engineering to help us design what you'll see today as Global Neighbors, the Refugee and Immigrant Welcome Center. This is a year's worth of work of research and development, community conversations, partnership establishment, looking at how to create a welcoming center for newcomers that will make their way to Iowa and eventually Polk County. We're very excited and proud to where we are today. BBS will present more specifically on the design of the space, and we'll get into more of a discussion. But in this year, we have had robust and intentional conversations with ethnic community-based organizations representing 14 different backgrounds. We are looking to establish some private partnerships as well, potentially. There's lots of interest in the overall support of newcomers, refugees, and immigrants. And then lastly, looking at some of our internal mechanisms and infrastructures within Polk County and helping support this work. Very grateful to the team at General Services, Scott Orth, Tom Alessio, and Rick Corbin, as well as some folks from Polk County Conservation, Polk County Health and Emergency Management. So why we're here today is to really showcase what this means and what it will mean for the community, for our refugees and immigrants. Polk County could not be in a better position to help support this work, once again, leading the way in during a very pivotal time to some of our most vulnerable citizens and residents. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian Huggins with BBS.
Thanks, Mark. Hello. Let's see about, how do I, there you go.
Like Mock said, my name's Brian Huggins. I'm with BBS Architects and Engineers, and I'd like to first state that it's been a privilege to partner with the county to work on a vision for Global Neighbors. Just so you all know, the people that I and our firm have direct contact with, Joy, Mock, Sarah, Scott, Tom, Rick, they've been awesome. Like, your team is top-notch. From passion to experience to the talent that they bring to this project, it's been phenomenal, and we're very thankful for that. We've been in continuous business, BBS Architects and Engineers, since 1895. One of the first projects we worked on was the Polk County Courthouse. And here we are 129 years later talking about Global Neighbors, and it's pretty awesome. Like, we're very excited. What we did was what we have done is an intentional design process. It's been methodical and very stepped in how we have immersed ourselves into the purpose of Global Neighbors and the context of the site of Global Neighbors to enable and to create a vision that's very specific to the needs of Global Neighbors. So we started, it's called pre-design. We started and have given a like 30 slide version of this, and we'll show you just a few of them. We analyzed the site and started looking at why 1900 Carpenter. And what we found, and it's pretty cool, what we found is it's not just because it was an empty building that you guys happen to have that worked pretty well with other buildings you had around it. The reason why all those buildings, including Global Neighbors, work so well is it's because it's pretty central to the needs that you guys have. It is like our process shows that it's a great location. Like, this is awesome. Like, this is a distance navigator talking about walking or different travel distances from Global Neighbors, which is in the epicenter there as it goes out, and it starts giving you ideas of how long it takes folks and to get to Global Neighbors and how centrally located it is. This is a community partners map, and what it's showing is there's arrows kind of in this top corner here going out to the northwest. You see all these different spots and points. These are all potential partners or organizations or services that will be utilized and are utilized by this immigrant and refugee community. And you can start seeing how it all just kind of starts falling into place for 1900 to be a pivotal spot for this work. We talked about and looked at transportation and here's a pretty good, now we're zeroed in a little bit. I know everyone here knows where 1900 Carpenter is, but as the Kiowa comes up from downtown right here, it merges into 19th Street, which turns into the full-on MLK Parkway up north a little bit. This is Carpenter Avenue, right where Kiowa comes into 19th, and that's where Global Neighbors is, right there. And you can see that there's public transportation lines and bus stops and all kinds of convenient locations right around this spot to allow clients to come in and be able to utilize the services. We also started looking at how that site, with all that traffic and all that movement, how that affects that corner and what that might mean for the design on the interior as well. What we found was this needs to be a place of safety and security and refuge, as well as a place to get services and to find optimism, moving forward. And it needs to have all that. And so what does that mean? How does the traffic noise affect it? How does the daylight that's coming into the building affect the workers, the people that will staff the building and the users of the building? So we did daylight analysis and then used that to help focus the design. And finally, after all these meetings, like Mock did a great job. We've talked with tons of ECBO partners, various other partners like Des Moines Public Schools for the possible use or relocation of their Welcome Center into this facility to help with that part of the services. We've talked to clinical partners, Mock has done all that, and those partners to how they might come into the building. And when we started, it was an idea. We want to have a welcome center. What does that mean? And after all these meetings, this program kind of is the beginning of what spaces are necessary. And we came down to 5 basic areas. There's education, there's the ECBO, the Ethnic Community-Based Organizations locations. There's Polk County administrators for the program, the entry, and then shared spaces used by all, so that we becomes more of a community within the building. And that bubble diagram right there started taking us to the master plan that we're going to show you today. Jump up here whenever you want, Mark, if you want. Okay. Oh, there you are. This right here is the existing site plan. So just to orient you all, because we're going to be seeing this view often. This is how it's oriented. We have north to the right, Carpenter Avenue is on the right side, 19th Street is right to the bottom, to the south, and Keel Way comes up right here and connects in and then turns. So this is what's being built out there right now, and it's awesome. Like you guys are gonna be having landscaping coming around the corner, all these trees and these plantings and all this are being built right now. It's wonderful. This is what's basically existing. It's in construction, but it's existing for our master plan. As we looked at that awesome work, we started talking about how can we, if we had the opportunity, this is like a vision, a master plan, if we had the opportunity of what we can modify on that site to make the connection into the Global Neighbors a little bit more intentional to the use of Global Neighbors. This is kind of a pedestrian plaza we've started kicking around. This is conceptual, which is why it's sketched. It utilizes everything that you guys are building right now, except for the asphalt in the middle, which we would turn into pedestrian, instead of asphalt in cars. So if we went back and looked, you can see basically we're changing out some of these parking spaces and the asphalt in front of them and putting them into more of a pedestrian entry and plaza area. And those accessible parking spaces, if needed, they can be transferred to over on this side. The preliminary count shows we'll be fine, to do this and lose those 4 spots. We're losing 4 spots by doing this for accessible spots. So it's totally overcomable if this is a direction you guys want to look at. For the master floor plan and now we're getting into the actual design of the space. This is what it looks like now. It's an old human services building. These spaces in the bottom right corner are all what you'd come in and there was a service desk or a service counter right here, and this back here is an old conference room. This side is 3 feet higher in floor than this middle part, and then this corner is about a foot lower than this part up here. It was an old grocery store when it first came about. So everything, I guess at one point you come into the grocery store and you just kind of ramp up, ramp up into the space that help with deliveries is my guess, because there's no loading dock. I can just, nowadays you just have carts like landing in the corner there, I think. But anyhow, like that's the existing, and this is how it comes into the master floor plan that we want to talk about today. A complete reorganization of the space. The one thing that you guys will have to do, most likely for almost any use that you put into this spot, is you're gonna have to expand per code the restrooms and kind of some of those facilities. And that's kind of shown right down here. The existing restrooms are right there, and we're expanding them per code. For Global Neighbors, we have a couple of non-gendered restrooms as well to kind of help with cultural privacy issues that are present within the ECBO communities that we'll be utilizing. We have the entry, we have the education area, we have the admin. This orange right here is the possible area for a DMPS inclusion as a partner within these services, and then the yellow is more of a clinical for that like refugee and immigrant physical exam or vaccinations or that kind of thing. Yeah, please.
So two of the partnerships that we've been working on for some time now is with Broadlawns and Des Moines Public Schools. Nothing confirmed, exploratory conversations and looking at how we can support the same customer base that we are seeing across the board. Starting with Des Moines Public Schools, their current Kurtz building on the south side is not very conducive to accessibility for immigrants and refugees. Getting there through public transportation is a challenge as well, and even if you have your own private means, it's difficult to navigate. the partnership that we've been looking at potentially establishing is bringing that immigrant and refugee welcome center within Global Neighbors. We've had robust discussions with their leadership, and it aligns with what Des Moines Public Schools is currently going through, and they're reimagining what Des Moines Public Schools looks like. This will sort of be the catalyst in a way of bringing that project to life. We've had conversations with Associate Superintendent Matthew Smith, his entire team, and there's lots of excitement on putting this together. Why that would be beneficial is because not only Global Neighbors being centrally located in proximity to refugee communities in the neighborhood, but it's conveniently accessible. Bus lines running each way every 30 minutes. Refugees and immigrants are familiar with that space as it used to be the Bureau of Refugee Services and DHS at the time on the other side. So that familiarity and trust is already established. Jumping to Broadlawns, this was a most recent partnership that we've been looking to establish because Broadlawns is seeing an influx of refugees coming to access their services for the initial required refugee health assessment. Lack of clinicians and time has really been a challenge for refugees being able to access that required physical in due time within that first 90-day of their resettlement process. So we've explored through the design process, what would it look like to have maybe a satellite clinic and minimal space to do that screening, blood draws, and whatever have you that Broadlawns could utilize. We're also actively working with Polk County Health across the street and partnering in a three-way approach to what that might look like. We have yet to confirm if that will be feasible, but needless to say, the conversations have been very positive. So these are those partnerships that we talk about from a holistic approach that will really help and benefit our refugees towards that, and immigrants towards that long-term goal of integration. As you see the space and the way that it's designed, you come in and then it opens up into the spaces where the ECBO will be landing. That was intentional. The hallway, some of our murals and art pieces that Brian will share kind of lead and serve as a pathway, a journey, and it opens up into the ECBO space, which is at the core of this project. How do we empower and support our ethnic community-based organizations to work independently and collectively in supporting the broader immigrant community?
Mark, question for you. On the physicals you just talked about, that's just for resettled people, or does that include secondary immigration too?
That would be any refugee who needs to access their refugee physical. So if it's a secondary migrant who may have arrived in a different part of the country and then has not received their physical within that required time, they would be able to access that for that physical service.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Awesome, Mark. Just to kind of just hit on and kind of put a period on what Mark was just saying, the way that it is worked out is we are reutilizing all the entries and all the components that the building has to offer right now. As visitors come in, they'll land in that kind of lobby area. This main hallway does start a little bit more narrow, but it's like 8 feet wide over to this part, and it opens up as you're heading to your services. It's, you know, it sounds a little cheesy, but it's mimicking the journey as you're coming from this place here into these services. And we have set it up, think of like your kitchen services at your house. You have that triangle of your stove, your refrigerator, and your counter. That's kind of how this is working. You have the ECBOs, there it is. You have the ECBOs, and then you have this triangle of services. So everything kind of just lays out and all talks with each other and allows for that access and for the ability for ECBO volunteers to be able to help out with the DMPS folks if they need it, or vice versa, or with the clinical. It just becomes a community of support. And that's what this is designed to kind of lead to. Just to show, this is showing, superimposing that kind of pedestrian plaza area, so you can kind of see the thought being as you enter in, it becomes a place of refuge and a place of safety and privacy as you come in. So it's a transitional space, and you can see how that would move and come into the lobby and then come through for services. This is kind of showing what Mark was talking about, some of this. The ideas, one of the meetings we had was talking about the possibility of inclusion of art and symbology within the space, knowing that everyone comes from diverse backgrounds, but we're also all becoming Iowan, right? Like the idea is to bring you to, you're in central Iowa, you're in Polk County, and becoming Iowan. And so we, as an example of how this can look, we developed this mural as an example, kind of showing that journey if you're coming from afar and you're progressing to Iowa, the plains of and hills of Iowa. But as you look at it in the section, so in this drawing, the right side is the lobby, the left side is that open area for services, and then this is the hall as you're coming through. This is the wall fronting the education spaces we were showing with that mural. This is the other side of that hall looking to the east, so the lobby is now on the left. It's more of just a accent colored coming around. This is a shared services area. This corner right here is the DMPS possible area, and then the ECBO, and it all opens up. So it's giving you kind of a graphical look at what this could be and how this might feel within the space. And just to kind of help the overall vision, we have these 3D views. We've taken the roof, the ceilings, and the structure off. Therefore, you can actually see what's going on. 19th Street on this view is at the bottom here. 19th Street's on this side. Carpenter's here. North is kind of to the bottom right. And the lobby is at the bottom, and you proceed down the hall to the ECBO services. With that, you can kind of look to this, and you see it from the other direction, so you're starting to get some more views on the interior and how it might lay out in that progression. And then finally, from the other way, you can always come back if you have questions or want to see it a little bit more. And then zeroing in on the lobby right here, just to kind of get a feel. Again, super conceptual early on, but this is kind of the landing spot. And we are showing, as part of the master plan, opening up some of the exterior walls just a little bit, just to get that idea of that daylight bathing in and kind of helping that work environment and that healing space and that welcoming feel. Bringing that diffuse north light into the space is pretty powerful and pretty nice. Here's an example on the east elevation, what this master plan might feel like. These windows here are something to bring more light, or glazing walls to bring more light into the DMPS services. Right now, you have these existing horizontal windows up above. So as part of the DMPS build out, maybe that we would be able to bring some light in. And then we're showing that area kind of at the corner where we were showing that pedestrian plaza possibly. Right now, it's the old overhang area. There's a freight elevator right here for the grocery store. When it was first, we're showing maybe putting a mural on the outside facing towards that that Kiowa, 19th Street, and then kind of, this is a large version, just showing what it might feel like to have some color on the side of the building and make it a little bit more welcoming, more of a destination place, and kind of says this is what we do here. And then this is showing if we were to open up the windows a little bit more on the north side, one of the things that we have talked about was, well, we still need to have privacy and security and those kind of considerations in that lobby space. So we started looking at being able to bring all that light in, but allow for it to be more translucent at the bottom and more transparent at the top. And you're seeing kind of a sculptural element right here. We're calling that, it's a metal healing tree, sculptural element that kind of focuses on that walkway, and it helps bring the scale down to a human scale in the lobby area, but kind of showing that peeking through at the top. And then this would be, in that master plan idea, the south side here, opening that up to allow for a little bit more light. This is on axis with the walkway on the inside. So you have more direct south light coming through and diffusing through that conference room space we were showing and plan, and kind of being able to kind of help fill that backside along with the existing transom windows up above and that north light from the other side. So with that, as we've been thinking about this, we're showing you a grand vision. This is a vision for Global Neighbors, taking into account as much as what we could take into account for everything that we heard. So it's a little bit of everything. It's not perfect in any one, but it's like pretty strong in a lot of it, in most of it. That's kind of where we landed. There's a lot to think about with these services. But we do know that, let's give some flexibility and let's give options. Like, you all need options. Everyone wants options. So phase one, we thought about, well, what if we did this in phases? And a phase one might be, for budgetary reasons, showing you architecturally, Mark can talk about what it means programmatically here in a second, but architecturally, this is the master plan we just showed you. And going to a phase one, kind of taking it down to the entry sequence, leaving the existing site as it's going to be in place with all those nice trees and everything right there. Having that lobby, the admin section for Polk County, a kind of a shared educational and ECBO staging room and area here, the shared services that we need to have with the restroom expansion, and then DMPS possibly being able to come in and conduct their build out within the space. And then it takes away as well the exterior windows, and that's pretty much the major thing. So we're keeping the windows as they land right now. You want to talk?
Yeah, absolutely. From a programmatic perspective, if we were to proceed with phase one, we would be able to open doors and help support a portion of the community, but not nearly as much as we would if the entire plan was implemented. Particularly when you look at the ECBO classroom space, again, at the core of this center is providing an educational space for refugees to learn, for refugees to receive supports and services towards that goal of integration. Our ability to do that will be limited. We would probably have to pick and choose which area would receive priority, either ECBOs working within the center itself and compromising providing educational opportunities in different programmings, or vice versa. Early on, when we did assessments on what the community would be looking for and would need to be successful with this one-stop shop, per se, it was having a space for the ECBOs to function. Along that is also having an opportunity to engage their respective communities, but to also for us to work as a collective. This phase one would allow us to a certain extent to do that, but not as well and robustly as we could if the entire center was built out, offering multiple classrooms, working with the ECBOs working within the center, as well as with some of our external partners as well. So that's, when we look at options and if it was a phased approach, that would be what it would look like and the impact it would have on the broader community.
And then I think as we, there we go. We'll let Sarah jump in now and talk a little bit about projected costs.
Thank you, guys. Okay, getting into the budget proposal as it relates to this project. When we first identified this building as the best site for this a couple years ago, I guess I kind of miraculously thought in my head General Services could pull this over for a couple $100,000. But going through this process with Brian and his team and Mock has really opened my eyes to the potential for this building, for the vision, for really elevating what's inside that building and outside on that corner for the neighborhood. I think what he's proposed kind of mirrors what we have on the other side of the building with the sobering center, crisis observation, and psychiatric urgent care. We invested a lot of money into making sure that was done right, and I think we have the opportunity to do that here as well. So the budget sheet that is included does show this in 3 phases. The total cost for those phases is about $3.7 million, which is down about $1.5 million from what I initially heard maybe 4 months ago. So that's good news. The first column A is what Brian had touched on. It's just items that have to be done regardless of what is going in this building or not. So about $2 million of those costs is taken up just by getting that building up to code and inhabitable regardless of the use. And I'll add, these estimates were provided by General Services and in consultation with Brian and his group. So then you'll see the remainder of the phase 1 and phase 2 is about, so we'd have to spend about 2.5 just to get phase 1 up and running for the building, and then it'd be an additional $1 million or so to complete this vision as it is. So the proposed way to fund this would be we had allocated, or the board had allocated 5 million or so to the sobering center side of the building. That money was spent down through general services, self-performing the work. With them self-performing, we saved about 2 million, so there's still 2 million sitting in that account it's already been funded, already been allocated towards construction. We're proposing to roll that over to complete the east side of the building. We also have submitted a $1.2 million grant to MIPA, and originally we're told to expect an answer on that in the spring. I think Joy told me today that there's some conversation about trying to make those allocations earlier than that. So hopefully here in the next couple months, we might have a little bit better idea. So really, we've got the bulk of this proposed budget kind of covered between the savings on the west side of the building and what we think is a really strong application for 1.2 from MIPA. But my intent was to have the board vote on a resolution next week that authorizes the team to move forward with the full proposal, just so that we know. I know Supervisor Brownell, you worked a lot on this project, so want to make sure you see it get over the finish line before you're done. So that was my intent.
I think everybody wants to see it over the finish line. I guess speaking for myself here, I won't be around to kind of figure this out exactly, but I would say this. I think one of the selling points for the ethnic groups was the ability to be in the facility and doing their work in the facility. If we don't do that to start with, I realize these phases are phases and it all come out okay in the wash probably, but if you don't do that to begin with, I think, I fear maybe we lose credibility with them, and that's not what we want. We want for them to feel that they're going to be there and they're going to be doing their thing within these facilities. So that's a consideration that we have to bear in mind very carefully.
Agreed.
Well, that was the intent when we started this whole project.
Right.
So they could all be together and have a place. So that sort of blows that up if we don't do it.
Yeah, kind of does. And I love the idea of the Des Moines Public Schools. That's great. I don't know if you're going to get over the finish line on that one, but I hope you can, because I think that makes a lot of sense for them and for us both.
So, yeah, the question, because I think the inclusion of the schools is a home run, will they share any costs for construction for their space? Do we know?
Yeah, that's something that we're exploring at this time. It would be most likely through a 28E agreement, but with the specifics of that, we don't know quite yet. We have presented to them the master plan and the allocated space that would be for them. They are very excited and want to make this happen. Just the specifics are yet to be determined, but we are committed to ensuring that we are successful.
And they would help pay.
Correct.
It probably wouldn't be a lot, but you're talking about the construction of the walls for their
Yeah,
space, maybe.
Absolutely. Yep.
That
That was a verbal agreement that we got from their leadership, so I'll take their word on it for now.
And that's baked into the 3.69.
It is not.
What I mean is, the 3.69 includes the build-out of their space, but doesn't include any credit for them putting any.
Correct. Yep.
Do we know what the actual operational cost is on this yet?
No, not yet. We've got your cost, we've got Rossi cost, we've got an administrative cost, and have you put together any further programming costs?
We have not at this time.
Okay, so we still have, I'm in agreement to put on a resolution to go full forward. I think we need to do that. There's still room to value engineer some things. I'm not totally sold on blowing out the windows. I don't know if that's necessary. I like the design, and I think we need to do everything that you have on the plan. Did I see this right? We only have 2 admin offices?
Yeah, so as of right now, the 2 individuals that would be occupying that space from a Polk County team would be myself and Stephanie Morris with the Refugee Alliance of Central Iowa. There's also in motion approval for additional positions, 1 to 2, I believe, that would help program specialists that would help with wraparound and day-to-day activities, not only supporting the ECBOs and the internal operations of Global Neighbors, but also working externally in partnership building.
Okay.
A lot of this is to help support their programming, not necessarily do all of our own, right?
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think it's also a mutual understanding in what we're trying to do for newcomers. We've always said Polk County is here to support the ECBOs and their achievement and success with our guidance and technical assistance as needed. I think it's also valuable and imperative that Polk County continues to lead in certain programmatic development and outreach around global neighbors. We're proud and grateful that Polk County has decided to be a leader in this space, particularly as a government entity in our day and age when it comes to supporting immigrants and refugees. So we value that and take that very seriously, and we want to ensure Polk County is set up for success through our partnerships, but also through the relationships that we create. But yes, this is very much so driven by the ECBOs and the broader immigrant community. The entire design you saw today was directly influenced by the community conversations we had early on. John, you were a part of those, and you saw the groups that came together. We're very excited to help support them and continue to build this out.
So what are the operational costs that will need to be considered as we go forward?
Yeah, at this time, it's primarily staffing. If we were to look at what support would be for the ECBOs, it primarily would be certain programming and services that we might look to establish through the Global Neighbors lens. For example, one of the classrooms might be a computer lab. That might be a part of our operational costs that we may not burden the ECBOs with because of their funding infrastructure and setup and not having a lot of money. A lot of these ECBOs work pro bono and have volunteer base that sustain them. So operational costs, may look at technology, for example, may look at other programs that are leaning towards health-related services and supports. Right now, it's really hard to gather what that might look like. We've really been focused on establishing this space and creating it. Operational costs are kind of the next phase of the project, and looking at what the ECBOs will need, bringing them back together, looking at our budget that Global Neighbors has been allocated, and then finding how to implement that.
But a lot of those things that we're going to provide, hopefully, the ECBOs and your team, learning the language, navigating the systems, those are not going to be costing us money.
No, correct. Yeah, so
operations, well,
won't be a lot of money. No. To your example, when you consider English classes.
yes.
We have an Afghan ECBO currently who's providing services and supports, but they don't have a space to operate in.
That's why they're there.
That's why they're there, and that's why they will be able to use the classroom space to provide those services.
Right.
There may be some other components of operational costs that are yet to be considered that we just don't know, but currently in this iteration, very minimal.
How to cook, or,
Sure.
all kinds of things.
How to open your mail, what does
Right.
mail mean,
I mean, there's a lot of things they need
Yeah.
to learn, and that's where it won't cost us any money, but we
Right.
have volunteers and ECBOs to teach them that.
Yep.
Joy, did you have something to say, or Scott, you got your hand up? Either one.
Joy,
General services, it'd probably take an FTE to keep that place maintained, cleaned, to have general janitorial services, maintenance services in that building. Tom and I have discussed that pretty much at length. We walked the square footage and looked at the plans. And if general services is gonna take care of things, it would probably take an employee to do it.
Okay,
Joy?
We do have a decision package that will go in front of you in terms of budget in this coming year. But we do also think that we have 2 or 3 FTEs that we will likely lose in other areas of our department over the next 2 years through attrition that can then be repurposed or redeployed into Global Neighbors. We may have to look at some changes of job description and job title, but I think the budget as a whole for staff could be absorbed within maybe one staff person going forward. And as we look at programmatic expenses, we are also able to absorb some of that through the refugee funding that the board had allocated through GA and through the refugee special grant projects. Our goal is to then repurpose that into a line that we have called ECBO services, because we know that there are going to be supports that they need and programmatic needs.
Sure.
But we think that what's there currently could be reutilized for that purpose. So hopefully not looking at an expansion in any great way for budget in terms of programming.
Yeah, and it'll be a learning curve. I mean, this is a new territory for us, something we wanted to do, so.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's gonna be learned by doing, and, you know, I don't think this would be that tough of a number to come up with, Mock. You know, it's gonna be, like most government stuff, it's gonna be a lot of staff-driven, and we can figure that out, between salaries and benefits and so forth, so we can figure that part of it out. Joy's right, I think we allocated $100,000 towards refugee services and those kinds of things right now. That could be deployed towards ECBO services, I suppose. But some of that stuff would be easy to come up with, I think. You know, Scott talks about it, FTE, you know, to clean the place. You know, plug all that in. I don't think it'd be a tough of a number to come up with, but we need to get it. So I'd encourage you to work on that.
Thank you.
It sounds to me, and to respond to your question, Matt, is there aren't a lot of additional baked-in operational costs, but there may be proposals or opportunities the board will have to decide how much you want to do or not. But it sounds like from extra janitor and perhaps a staff person that might be able to be accounted for, not really wedding ourselves just with the construction of the space and the launch.
Right.
To increasing operational costs. But outside of those, probably two that we heard from, and one could be consumed in the current FTE allowed.
We have a full-time, over at New Life Center, janitor? So they can't share the time, you don't think?
I don't think they can get everything done.
Okay, probably not.
No,
Yeah, because that's pretty unique over at the New Life Center. I imagine.
We're kind of taking a close look at it, because the last thing I'd like to see happen is for us to build this and launch it off and everything like that, and have come up short on really being honest about what it's gonna take to run a quality.
No, I agree. You're right.
And
That's fine.
Mark, have you done any exploration? I would think there would be some possibilities for some corporate sponsorships for like equipping a computer lab or stuff like that. Have you explored that at all, or you think there's opportunity?
Yeah, it's been a pleasant surprise, in what some of the partnerships and conversations I've had early on. For example, for our computer lab, Salmon's Financial has already expressed interest to sponsor the computer lab. So I'm trying to be in every corner, in every space I can to really build a coalition around this work.
Who were the people that we met with in the beginning when we first talked about this? We had businesses when we first brought all of this up.
Oh, yeah.
We had people
Principal
at the table.
Yeah, Principal was one of them.
That's what I'm-
Wells Fargo, I think, gave money.
Wells Fargo,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they gave money.
Right.
Principal,
This got all changed, but.
we'll have to go back and get our notes, but there were people that really wanted to help
The
invest in
partnership
this.
was also a
Yeah,
part
the
of it as
partnership
well,
was
yeah.
part of it. Well, they won't
Yeah.
give any money, but they'll be supportive.
They'll be supportive,
Yes,
yes.
yes. But there were businesses that wanted to participate. I mean, they're our workforce, you know, so. Okay, this is great.
One last thing, if I can.
Yes?
I understand, Brian, that your firm has done all this work pro bono for the county.
Oh, wow.
And I think that they deserve a huge
Yeah, it's a huge number.
thank you and appreciation. There'll be more as we go forward, but I want to make sure that you all understood that.
Yeah,
Wow,
couldn't have done it
thank you.
without them.
It's been a privilege, actually, so thank
That's great.
Yeah, thanks,
So, my next question is, when do we get to start?
After you vote on Tuesday.
How about you guys?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
I'm talking to that
When are you
man
gonna
back there.
start? When are you gonna
Before he
start?
has a heart attack.
General services, the board decides and we execute. So, whenever you want us to.
You've had a month off from the Life Services Center, so you're ready.
I didn't think to go full bore, we would need a set of plans, but I'm gonna start demo getting.
So we would be able to start talking about going forward with the design and getting to a permitting stage
implementation, that'll probably be a few months, like few months, not a few months.
There have been, as most of you know, the questions are, do we expose the hardwood above, or do we do drop ceilings? How are we gonna manage the positioning of this and that? Because that determines how we do the fire sprinkler system and et cetera, et cetera. So those determinations have yet to be made, but we're eager to sit down and talk about how this design will look in conjunction with the general services ability to put the thing together.
Okay. So Tuesday we vote and you guys are full steam ahead.
Yep.
Sweet. Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Lon.
Great.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay.